Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you about a paradox. For the last 3 years, my team and I have been on a mission to build the perfect data strategy. And for a while, we thought we were absolutely crushing it. But just when we had all the right pieces in place, we realized that we had solved a problem that no longer existed. We had built the perfect data strategy for 3 years ago. For context, Workday is a Fortune 500 company that serves more than half of the Fortune 500. And even though we're a large company, we have a very entrepreneurial culture. When it comes to data, that means everybody did what they wanted. They went along and had the keys to the kingdom in tools like Tableau, where they could each create their own respective version of truth. The journey to an enterprise data strategy has always been complex. It's a messy mix of technical challenges and political battles. Getting people to agree on what a customer is or how to calculate revenue can often feel like an exercise in international diplomacy. For too long, data governance was seen as passive, it's a bureaucratic chore, a dusty library of records and rule books. This was clearly going to interfere with our entrepreneurial style. My team decided to flip that script. We realized that for governance to be effective, it couldn't be an afterthought. It had to be a feature. We embraced a data product mindset, where data is treated like a product, and governance is a core part of its design. We had to make it easy, even effortless, for people to get their hands on the right data faster than they could get their hands on the wrong data. Tools like Atlan were absolutely critical here. They allowed us to move beyond simple record keeping and embed governance directly into our data operations. But first, we needed to define right. We built a system where you couldn't promote code into our production environment unless it actually passed a series of really rigorous tests. Did it have business definitions and glossary terms? Were the columns labeled and tagged for security? Were the observability rules in place? Only when a product met these rigorous standards could it be released. In Atlan, we cataloged 6 million assets. We defined 1,000 glossary terms and had hundreds of users across the company contributing, governing, and searching for data. We were all speaking the same language. We had products on the shelf, ready to use. We were proud. It was beautiful. And then AI showed up. And over the past 3 years, as we're building the system, the world of artificial intelligence was evolving at a breakneck pace. Suddenly, a new challenge emerged that our carefully crafted governance model wasn't equipped to handle. Think about how a traditional business intelligence workflow works. A business owner asks a question like, how many of our sales came from tenured reps in the Northeast last quarter? A data analyst or a BI person might take that question. They're going to use their human intuition. They're going to use their experience and their network to interpret that question. They can look at the data. They can consult with the data community and find the right tables to help them find the right answer. It's a cooperative, human-centric process. But in the AI world, the AI itself must interpret the question and find the answer. You know what happens when it doesn't? Hallucinations. AI excels at interpreting unstructured data, things like images, voice, text, but when it comes to structured data, the neat rows and columns of our database that we thought were so easy for so long, AI kind of struggles. Ironic, isn't it? That which used to be easy is now hard, and that which was once hard is now easy. Why? Because our beautiful governed data, while great for humans, isn't really particularly digestible for an AI. An AI doesn't innately understand how to calculate metrics or the complex relationships between tables or the nuances of business logic. It struggles to tie sales to Northeast reps and some definition of tenured. We discovered this when we introduced our Talk to Data pilot and we sat down with the users. They'd ask questions and we'd say, no, you can't ask that way. That'll screw up the language model. And then we'd change the semantic on the fly. This doesn't scale. To really solve this, we realized that we needed to build a semantic layer. This has historically been something that's really tied to BI, but now it needed to be upgraded and reimagined for AI. It really required a different kind of operating model that would bring together a way to get those definitions really close to the data as opposed to locked inside one of those BI tools. So we really need to figure out how we were going to do this. And this is where governance gets a lot more complicated. It's no longer about documenting glossary terms in a tool. It's about building machine-readable layer of meaning. We're talking about YAML files, complex mappings, connecting different AI agents and platforms. We thought governance was hard before, but this is a whole new level of hard. And to make things even more challenging, AI has a major weakness. It doesn't know how to say, I don't know. Instead of asking for clarification, it simply hallucinates. It makes up answers. If the semantic layer isn't crystal clear, if there's any ambiguity, the AI will invent a response that it will confidently be wrong. This is a massive problem. In the future, our job will not just be to govern data. It will be to teach AI how to interact with it. We need to help AI learn and say, what do you mean? We need to build a system that can guide users in constructing a smart prompt that aligns with the governance framework. The user asks, the AI responds with, I can answer that question, but I need you to clarify what you mean by customer. Is it a paying customer, a lead, a trial user? This interactive process really needs to be baked directly into the platform. We need context. We need clarity. We need formal standards. This is the future of AI governance. And so we're excited to build with Atlan. All of the work that we did to get to a shared language amongst people at Workday can be leveraged by AI via Atlan's MCP server. We can start to teach AI our language. And as part of Atlan's AI labs, we're co-building the semantic layer that AI needs with new constructs like context products that can start with an end user's prompt and include them in the development process. This is a monumental task, but the impact will be huge. While humans can often work around a flawed system, patching together dashboards, making educated guesses, an AI will not. It will demand clarity. It will force us to create a truly unambiguous source of truth, not just for data, but for the context held by people. This new reality will create gravity around the governed data, making the semantic context layer the single most important asset in the organization. Ultimately, it will elevate data governance from a passive chore to an active, essential part of our AI-driven future. You know, in our profession, we've always known that data governance is the foundation for great AI. Now is our time to prove it. Thank you. Prakolpa.
Oh my gosh, George, that was amazing. That was so inspirational. I actually think it was maybe the most inspirational data governance talk I've ever seen.
Well, thank you.
I have so many questions. You said something about how you had this perfect data strategy and then the world changed. What was your earliest signal when you started realizing that the world was changing?
So we had a use case in which we were asked by the finance team. One of our earliest use cases was on our financial performance, specifically in software. The number one metric that you can measure is recurring revenue. So we would have this beautiful data around recurring revenue. We used it to do our end of quarter reporting, et cetera. And we said, we're going to make an agent around that. And so we built this beautiful agent. We deployed things on top of it, and it couldn't answer one question that they answered, what they asked. It was actually a little bit embarrassing, like even the most simple questions. And we started to realize that we were missing this translation layer. We had no way for us to interpret the human language against the structure of the data. And so what happened is we started to build it in this piecemeal way to make these specific questions work. And then you had this realization, like, this could never scale. Like, we're going to have thousands of agents all over the place, each with their own custom-built, custom bespoke semantic layer. And we really started to think about how we needed to think through the context for how people spoke to data and the importance of context and the importance of rules that help people understand what words and phrases mean. And that was really kind of a wake-up call, and we've been focused on that ever since.
That is so cool, and I think that's in some ways, the large language model, it understands language, but how do you teach it meaning?
Yeah.
And how do you teach it the meaning of your business,
Yeah.
which is so unique? How are you thinking about that today?
Yeah. So I think that we have the ability to crank out lots and lots of for-purpose agents right now. But my concern about that is that we have 900 Tableau dashboards that could quickly be replaced with 900 agents, right? And the way that one would do that is, as we build a specific agent for a specific purpose, you're building out your own semantic layer for that. So that capability to do that exists. The ability for us to tell a specific agent how to interpret it exists. What's really evolving right now, and what we're so excited that Atlan is leaning into, is this idea of semantic shouldn't be for a particular use case. It just exists for everyone, right? So much in the same way that we shouldn't spend time arguing about what revenue means or how many customers we have. We shouldn't really argue about the way that an AI is going to interpret it. It's either true or false. And then we can start to actually work on the quality of unstructured things that's so good at to help us understand why and to really churn through that. But if we have something that we say, this is a churn, there should be a formal definition of that. If we say that this is a renewal, if we have somebody who leaves, was it a voluntary attrition or an involuntary attrition? Those need to have the same standard metrics that they did before, except now they don't sit in a BI tool. They don't sit in a governance tool. They have to sit at the crossroads of all of this in the semantic layer so that that contextual meaning can be understood by everyone who's calling it from different tools. And there's an important assumption there, which is things are changing really fast on the AI front and on the consumption front.
Something a lot of data leaders tell me is that I know that to unlock this, I need to do a lot of foundational work. But the thing that my business wants is the shiny AI demo. How do you convince an organization about the foundational work that it's going to take to go from experimentation to production?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been trying to do is to find stakeholders who are in it for the long term. The reality of somebody in our position, data leaders, we've been talking a little bit about the politics of the situation. We are a utility, right? We are trying to get the data and analytics to the people in a way that is easy to consume. And so if you kind of think about it through that lens, what you're trying to do is to find those people that need trustworthiness, trust, all these things more. Generally speaking, those people can be found in places like finance and things like that. So that's where we went first. And we're the people that are there to help them to make sure that when they build that shiny object, it's going to perform as they expect.
It's interesting you mentioned that because it all kind of comes down to the context engineering of making an agent work, right? And the context doesn't sit with technology or at all. The context in this world, actually, the context is completely with the business. And often AI projects have been looked at as technology initiatives or are still being looked at as technology initiatives. Have you had success in getting business stakeholders to be involved deeply in the process? And what's different about those business stakeholders? Like what's made it work?
Yeah, so a comment on your context. I think that the first thing we've been talking about has been around, do words and phrases mean what they mean? But then there's also kind of a localization of what it means. So for us, we had an incident that just happened last week where two different people were trying to ask about AEs. One was asking about an account executive, and one was asking about an analytics engineer. And so the context is, what organization do you work in, right? How many of these things do we have? You'd actually have the same question but get a different answer. And I think that's the future of where we really get to with context. Who are you? What's the purpose for your question? Why are you trying to ask this question? So with respect to kind of who gets involved, I think that there's something really particular about people who need truth to be accurate and that lean into definitions. That's why there are certain areas like finance, like compliance, when you need something to be truly accurate, you get them to lean into definitions and really get them to check. They were much more interested in checking our work. When we made our first agent for finance, you bet they were all over making sure those numbers were working and accurate. And I think that you need to start with organizations that focus on that.
On that note, one of the things I know we've been super excited about partnering with you all on is this co-creating this construct of maybe a context product. I know we've been doing some work with you on Atlan AI Labs. What are you excited about as we experiment on these new constructs to make context operationalized at scale?
Yeah. One of the things that we didn't expect to happen is that every single tool that says it has some AI inside brings along its entirely unique, bespoke semantic layer, data layer, storage layer, everything. And so what's been really difficult is to make those interoperate in a world where that's what the business wants. The business doesn't care about what tool you're in. They care about an overall integration of these things. So I would say that what we're excited about with working with Atlan is how do we actually create a place that is aware of all these different things across different platforms that's really able to understand the context of users, the context of data, the context of the platforms they're in, and really represent that in a neutral way to whoever's coming to consume it. So we're really excited about the view of semantics and context and where you're headed to make that just available for everybody.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited about
Been
where
a
we're going in
pleasure.
the future.
Thanks for having me.